We are going to be hitting the campaign trail hard and fast as soon as we can. And absolutely, we're going to be fighting to be a contrast to the elitists that are Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and yes, even Robert Kennedy.
That was Chase Oliver, the Libertarian Party's candidate for president, selected at their convention in Washington, D.C. last month. Oliver's running mate is Mike Maat. He was one of the candidates for president also, and he'll be touring the U.S. as a part of the ticket. We caught up with him on Monday and spoke with him via Zoom. Mike, first of all, what's it like to be on a national ticket running a national campaign, and what are some of the things that you hope to learn and some of the things you hope to get accomplished?
Well, thanks, Don. It's a joy to be with you. In answer to your specific question, it's a lot of hard work, right? But there's, the upside is I get to talk to people like you who otherwise wouldn't have dialed me this morning, probably. We are getting our message out, and our message, of course, is one of peace over war and fiscal conservatism rather than blowing a lot of money and shoring up the dollar and ending inflation. And so in that sense, I think that people are warm to what our message is. The big challenge is to get that message out, right? It is a challenge.
I assume you guys send regular press releases to CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CBS, ABC, NBC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How often do you hear back from them?
Well, we hear back more often than we hear a yes, but the good news is that we have managed to get Chase on a couple of those. CNN comes to mind immediately. He and I have both been interviewed by Forbes and by a number of regional outlets. So things are picking up, things are progressing. I wouldn't say that we've hit a home run so far, but it's only been a couple of weeks, but I'd say we're on second base.
I was at the convention, as you know, we spoke there, and I was surprised first by how many participants there were. There were like 1,000 or better delegates, directly participating, and then a very large media space. A lot of people got word out about the convention. What kind of infrastructure do you guys have in terms of being able to, have a ground game on the campaign going forward?
We have a pretty good infrastructure. I've actually been impressed in the sense that we've got a couple of dozen staffers centrally, people who manage the media, help with social media, help planning events and coordinating travel, that sort of thing. But I'm also heartened by the fact that there are people in every single state, oftentimes people who are working with the local state Libertarian Party, and people who are not involved with the Libertarian Party who help out in each state. They help regarding getting our message out, setting up regional media, planning events. So it's very exciting to feel that support. It's a good feeling.
With the perspective of someone running a national campaign, how does it look on the ground in terms of people running for Congress and maybe state level offices in this campaign cycle?
I think that is yet to be determined. We have some really terrific candidates, both statewide and more locally. I've run for Congress myself. I know that it's quite a lift. And I also know how much you appreciate it when the national campaign is backing you up in terms of messaging, branding. One of the challenges, Don, is you can imagine, is that when you're out there campaigning at a local level, you're standing in the Walmart parking lot passing out literature. You got to spend the first 2 minutes explaining what the Libertarian Party is. Yeah. So that's our job at the national level.
Yeah, people aren't really trained for that. If you were to ask lifelong enrollees in the Democratic or Republican parties what their party stands for, each person that you ask would have their unique definition of it, and pretty amorphous ones at that. What's your short message to people when you explain that to, the Libertarian Party, to people in the...
The Libertarian Party wants to take over government so we can leave you alone. We believe that it's your body, it's your business, it's your life, it's your property. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It certainly doesn't belong to the government. And so we believe that the government is here to protect your liberty, to protect you and your property. And that's really about it. So our short message is we believe the government has gotten too big. It is expanded in both scale and scope beyond what it was intended to be. And your life will be better when we can help the government stand down instead of expanding.
So the stars are aligned and the gods are favorable and everything works, and maybe Joe Biden falls off a cliff or something, and next to Donald Trump. And suddenly it's January 21st, 2025, and you guys are in the White House. What is the first order of business looking out, say the first 100 days?
There are a couple of specific things. One is to change foreign policy in a real fundamental way. We need to send the signal that we're going to have a less militaristic attitude toward the rest of the world. And we are going to spend much less in terms of our resources toward projecting military hegemony around the world. Not only do I believe that's important ethically, I think our foreign policy just doesn't align with most Americans' ethics and principles and values. But also, as a practical matter, it would be very difficult to argue that our foreign policy projected by the U.S. federal government has made us safer. As a practical matter, I just don't think that Americans would point to a lot of the things that our government has done over the last couple of decades and say, well, that was a good idea. I just don't think that those examples exist. So we need to change that lickety split. The other thing is we need to stop the government from spending so damn much money.
Some areas that you would start hacking away in that regard.
Yeah, thanks. I would put an entire cap over all of government spending because I think that Congress, which after all is made up of a bunch of Republicans and Democrats and not libertarians, I think Congress would have an easier time buying into the notion that we have to cap overall spending rather than ask them to do the politically difficult work of picking out which programs to cut back. 20 years ago, well, now 30 years ago, I date myself, when I was an economist with the White House, now 34 years ago, oh my goodness, we had budget control law in place that helped in this regard a little bit. That has been left by the wayside. And that instituted an overall cap. And so if Congress moved to spend more money, it would trigger, a haircut across everybody's program. And I think we need that style of constraint to be returned.
So we'll be covering this until the end, of course, and we wish you a lot of luck and hope it's an interesting ride for you. What would you say to people looking at the campaign between now and then? What should they be looking to you for?
They should be looking to us for a set of principles, a set of solutions, certainly, but really a set of principles and values that align with their own. We are the philosophical descendants of the people that wrote the Constitution. We believe in what it was that the government was intended to do and not intrude in your life. And so I think most people, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent, whether you ever voted before, I think that you can look at our party and see your own values reflected.
Mike Maat, Vice Presidential Candidate for Libertarian Party, thank you very much for your time, and hope you have a nice ride until November.
Thanks, Don. It's good to be with you.
It's been a struggle for people trying to get their name on the ballot as third-party presidential candidates this year because of changes made by various state legislatures under the control of the Democratic or Republican parties, raising the number of signatures needed and adding other impediments. Nevertheless, the Libertarian Party says that they think they'll be on at least 48 and perhaps all 50 state ballots. At the moment, there are challenges in New York and Illinois pending. We'll report on that as it develops. For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.